Warning, the following podcast episode includes discussion on rape, incest, sexual assault, and genocide. If you or anyone you know needs help, please feel free to reach out, and we will try to connect you with the best organization to follow up with.
Welcome to the Religious Treehouse. I'm Matthew.
And I'm Jody.
Jody, what's up with you?
Oh, nothing much. Went to therapy, cried. What's up with you?
Cool. Didn't go to therapy, didn't cry, but I am, as people on YouTube can probably notice, in a new location. So I apologize for my background in the lighting situation. That's going to get figured out at some point in a few episodes' time. But no, this is exciting.
There's been no change.
Yeah, we're living different lives right now, and that's okay.
Yep.
But we are talking about we're in section 3. This is our third week of our 4-part series going through Phyllis Trible's Text of Terror. This week we're talking about the unnamed woman from Judges 19. As I warned you at the beginning of this, it just gets worse and worse with each chapter, and I think next week isn't going to be as bad. So, maybe this will be a nice, this could be the worst that we get, if I remember correctly. But this is a rough chapter. So again, content warnings that we have with all of these episodes. Don't listen if this isn't healthy for you, talking about sexual assault and murder and dismemberment and other bad things like that. But here we are. Jody, what are your initial thoughts on this?
Like an episode of Bones.
Could be.
The horrificness that happens. Yeah, my thoughts on this. Number one, I would love at the end of this episode to give this woman a name. I already have a suggestion, Beth, because I think it's messed up as all hell that she doesn't have a name.
Okay, yeah, valid.
Why are we doing terrible things to a woman with no name? I don't like that. I don't vibe with that. I understand why they probably didn't give her a name, but hey, give her a name. That was the most heartbreaking part of me. The Bible hates men. Because why do we continue to showcase all of the horrible things men do? Because the Bible hates him. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. First thought here. The Bible is it's ink on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
The Bible doesn't have emotions. So I don't know if the Bible hates men. And secondly, I don't think the Bible's as upset with the men here as we'd want them to be.
Probably not.
But sure. What I got from this, if I were to say that the Bible hated a specific gender from what we've been reading the past few weeks, I'd argue that the Bible hated women. But you're taking the opposite side, and that's okay. We can disagree.
Listen, I'm just saying this is a prime example. This book is just like all of the examples of why men shouldn't lead. Look at all the things the men do. Look at all the things the men do wrong. And these women, their largest crime, biting an apple. Having a baby the Lord gave them.
Yeah, maybe we need to revisit our Genesis episode. But yeah, no, those are interesting takes. And I don't know if that's exactly what we're discussing today, but I'm glad that we've let our thoughts out, and I think that's a good thing to have thoughts on, at least.
Yeah, I'm scared you're going to assume I'm going to move on from these thoughts. Nope, I'm heated.
Cool.
So let's get into the story.
Cool. So as previously, this is literary feminist readings of the biblical narratives through Phyllis Trible. And first, a brief outline, I think, is always appropriate, because if we're doing literary criticism, outlines are generally step one.
Sure.
So Trible kind of breaks this up into 5 sections. We have the introduction, and we have scene 1, scene 2, or the interlude, and then scene 2, which is where like the main action happens, and then the conclusion. And these are all kind of separated by location. Scene 1 takes place in Bethlehem, scene 2 takes place in Jebus, and scene 3 takes place in Gibeah. So it's kind of separated by location, and we have 3 relatively short sections: the intro, scene 1, interlude, into a longer, messed up section in scene 2, and then we end with the conclusion. So we start off in the introduction. This is Judges 19. I don't know if I mentioned that. Judges 19, we start off with two main characters, the Levite from Ephraim and the concubine woman who's from Bethlehem. So I think this starts with, it starts with in those days when there were no kings in Israel. So that's important. We'll come back to that later. This is kind of setting up this final concluding section of the book of Judges as a whole. And it's repeatedly mentioned in those days there is no king in Israel. Yes, Jody.
Does this story follow the Judges cycle? I didn't think it did. Is it supposed to?
You mean like follow the narrative?
Yeah.
So no. So Samson, the story of Samson is going to be right before this. Okay. In the book of Judges, we have all the judges ending with Samson, and then this is kind of like a conclusion to the book of Judges. I think that's the best way we can think of this. Judges 19 through 22, 21.
The straw that broke the camel's back.
Sure. Yeah. No, this is definitely this section acts as a bridge between Judges and then Samuel, what comes next, at least in the Hebrew ordering. And we'll talk about the ordering of that later.
So this is an important story then, if we're looking at it biblical narrative-wise.
Well, yeah, I mean, biblical narrative-wise, this is, it kind of connects. This kind of adds justification and continuation of a story between the Judges era and the kingship era. And because we have this repetition of there was no king in Israel, this is kind of the story that is bridging that gap in a sense.
Okay. I'm feeling a little justice for our unnamed woman. You're important. She's important. Okay, yeah. Sorry, continue.
Right. We'll have bad news for that later. But yeah. The main thing that's happening here, though, noticing is we have people from different locations. And again, as we've been seeing through this analysis, the Levite, the man, is kind of the subject of most of the verbs happening, and the woman is the object who gets acted upon and doesn't have much agency throughout.
At this time, are Levites all priests, or is that just tribal Levite?
Not right. So
they're the priestly Levites, tribe.
Yeah, the Levites are the priestly tribe. Okay. So like the Levites don't have like a land of their own. So like we have the land of Benjamin, the land of Judah, and so on and so on. There's no like land necessarily associated with the Levites.
Okay. So he's just wandering, traveling.
Yeah. But like, so this Levite is from the land of Ephraim.
Okay. Sorry.
So that's kind of his area that he's part of, apparently, according to the narrative.
Yeah.
So then we get into section 1, where so the Levite, where are we at? Verse 3.
He made her angry.
What?
He made her angry, or she just left. Is that what we're talking about?
She decides to leave. It's kind of unclear exactly what happened. She is either left or sleeps with another man or does something. It's unclear exactly who the guilty party is. Is it her? Is it the Levite? It's kind of up in the air. But she goes off to her father's house in Bethlehem. Bethlehem, we know from famously in the New Testament, where Jesus was born. And why was Jesus born in Bethlehem, Jody?
Because these people just love to use women from Bethlehem's bodies.
Because it's where David is.
David came
from David. So this is connecting the story to David here. That's the main takeaway here. We're going to Bethlehem, and we think of Bethlehem as, David. We associate those two things together. So it'll all come together at the end, Jody. It'll all come together.
David, when I think Bethlehem, I think Jesus, but they wouldn't think Jesus. They didn't know Jesus.
Right.
I didn't know David was from Bethlehem, but that makes sense because they connected Jesus's line to David.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That makes sense. Sorry, continue.
Right. So anytime you're in the Hebrew Bible and you hear Bethlehem, you probably should be thinking, oh, this has something to do with David. That's just a general good rule of thumb.
Which I think you would only have if you had only read the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible.
Well, yeah, but even the New Testament, when it refers to Bethlehem, is often because it's associating it with David.
Yeah, but that's not where people's minds go. So that's
Right. No,
interesting to me.
Christianity has definitely said Bethlehem, Jesus. That's the main connection there. But
Interesting.
but in within the text, the
Okay.
connection is to David when talking about Bethlehem.
Okay. So they took a woman from David's town and mistreated her.
Yeah, this is before David, but yeah. So
So she went away to her father's.
right, she went away to her father's. The Levite follows, and the father meets the Levite with joy, and he's very happy, and they're so excited, and it's this very hospitable environment. This whole section, similar to our discussion in Sodom and Gomorrah, is a look into hospitality. So there's a lot of hospitality happening here, and people practicing the practices of hospitality. So that's kind of the focus of what's going on here. We see a lot of so in Bethlehem, the father, very, very hospitable. He's like over and again being super, super hospitable. Have I said hospitable enough?
No.
And that's kind of the point here. And they kind of start off together. They rise in the morning together. They eat breakfast together for the first 3 days, and then on the fourth and fifth day, the unity kind of dissolves. They don't really, wake up together, do things together. And a lot of ancient sources say that there's an argument happening here between the Levite and the old man, the father. So
that would make sense though, wouldn't it? If his daughter left her owner to go back to her father, she would tell him everything that went down. And then he wouldn't want his daughter to go back with him.
Yeah.
That was my initial understanding when I was reading it.
Yeah, the Levite is kind of there to get his concubine and kind of get out of there. But the father, playing into the roles of hospitality, is saying, no, stay another night. Oh, you can't leave now. It's already too late. You won't make it very far. So it's not until like the fifth day where eventually the Levite gets up and like is adamant about like, hey, no, it's time to go. The father again says, stay for just another meal. Come in and like you'll go out later. And it's this power struggle between the Levite and the man in this battle of hospitality kind of. But eventually the Levite wins. They have breakfast or whatever, and then they head out for the day. And again, throughout this whole time, the woman has no speech. She has no action. There's nothing about this is about her. She's kind of pushed off to the side and ignored.
Yeah. So the title of concubine,
mm-hmm.
within this historical text, is she a slave? Is she just a woman he has sex with? Where are we at?
It can mean a variety of things. Based on the context here, it seems like fairly monogamous, but it's there's no other woman really mentioned. So within this context here, we can think of her as like potentially his wife, like sex servant wife type person. We see in the kind of interlude, which we'll talk about next, that like the servant that he is with him, like he like talks with that servant and is like, hey, should we stay the night here? Should we keep moving? Like looking for that servant's ideas and conversing with him, but never once addresses the woman. So it seems that the woman is lesser than a servant in that sense, for sure.
It's just so confusing why he would go after her with what follows next.
Yeah.
Like to go after something because it holds value to you and then treat it as something less than something holding value to you is wild.
Well, yeah, because the woman is seen as property. It's not this relationship that he's going back and looking for, like, oh no, I miss this woman, I miss my concubine. The woman is seen as his property. So this is an investment that has walked away, and he's to go back and get his investment. So another messed up reading of this section.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yes. So he gets his investment back. He and the servant and the woman all make their way towards another town.
Right. And this is the interlude. They head towards Jebus, which they say is what Jerusalem was called before it was Jerusalem. I don't think we have any other evidence of that, but that's what the story says. They're heading towards Jebus. It's the Bible. I mean, like, I don't think of anywhere else within the Bible that says before Jerusalem it was called Jebus. Those are the Jebusites, who, again, I don't think we have any external confirmation of their existence. But for some reason, we say you're going to Jebus, which was later called Jerusalem, and we're like, okay, cool, we know what Jerusalem is. This story makes sense now. Yeah. But they talk. He talks with the servant, says, hey, should we stay the night in Jerusalem or should we keep pushing through? And eventually they say, no, we can't. It's a city of foreigners who choose not to belong to the people of Israel. So he says, we can't stay there. They're foreigners. We don't like them. We won't do well together. We got to just keep moving. And he's like, okay, cool. We'll keep going. The woman never consulted during this whole conversation.
Yeah. So they choose who do not belong to the people of Israel. Okay. Sorry. In my mind, I was like, okay, there's again that people of Israel thing, it not being a land, but like an idea of a people. So yeah, that was just standing out to me right then. But they're not going to stay there because all of the foreigners. Okay.
Yeah. Which again, we see later is very ironic because the people of Gibeah, where they end up staying, treats them oh so horribly.
Do those people belong to the people of Israel?
Yeah, so Gibeah is going to be within the tribe of Benjamin. So Benjamin is important for other reasons because Benjamin is associated with Saul. So anytime you hear the tribe of Benjamin, not exclusively, not as much as you would hear the city of Bethlehem being associated with David, but anytime you hear Benjamin, it probably is associated with Saul in some way or another.
Left hand.
Sure. Yeah.
To go back to our other Judges episode, the left hand.
Yeah. That would be one example of a time where it wasn't necessarily associated with Saul. Or I mean, perhaps it is in some way, but not as extensively as other parts are. But for sure, we move on, and this is verses 19 or verses 15 through 28. This is our scene 2. This is the main section of the story that we've entered into now.
Gird your loins.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's rough. It's awful. Like when you said each story gets progressively worse.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting the level of terror I felt reading this next part.
Yeah. And yeah, we're not even there yet.
Yeah, we're not even there yet. Sorry.
But this section starts with, or throughout this entire section, the word for house, bait, is kind of central and used repeatedly. Again, this is another exploration into hospitality, except this time we're not in Bethlehem, we're in Gibeah. So having, said no to Jebus because of foreigners, they find no one in Gibeah that are like too happy with them. But eventually a traveler from Benjamin, which is the same territory as the Levite, provides hospitality to the travelers that the others will not. And so the Levite explains what's going on, getting all the doodads and everything that they're doing, and he kind of offers the woman as bait to the old man, the traveler, kind of saying like, oh yeah, we've got our provisions, like we're doing great here. Also, like this is your maidservant. He kind of uses the language of your instead of my, kind of offering her up as collateral to some extent, which, again, not great, but it's one of those tiny little details that your maidservant instead of my maidservant that literary criticism can really bring out. And it's one of the good things the best things about literary criticism happening here, because it focuses on those small words like that says, oh, there might be something going on here because the Levite is offering up the concubine as your maidservant, not my maidservant. So yeah, and then likewise, they're looking for a place for them to be safe. And in verse 21, where we have it here, it's a place where he can be safe, where the Levite can be safe. So the woman here clearly is not safe, as we see later.
Nope.
But yeah. Any thoughts so far?
Girding my loins, man. I don't know. It's crazy. I'm gonna walk all the way to get this woman from Bethlehem, and we're not gonna stay in that city of foreigners, and we're just gonna stay here. Hey, you want to sleep with her?
Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not as explicit as that, but yeah. Yeah.
You know my summaries. They're not gonna please you. They're not gonna always be correct, but they'll be there. Yeah, so then they were enjoying themselves.
Yeah,
And the
no,
perverse men of the city rolled up.
It kind of starts off as we can think of it perhaps as like a party. What does it say? Yeah, while they were enjoying themselves. All I have is my JPS translation with me. Again, I'm in a different place. I have no idea where my handy NRSVU is. We'll find it before the next episode, I'm sure.
I'm sorry, did you not look at our text messages? Look for was it red and black box?
So, sorry. But yeah, we're in they're in the house with the man, and they're having a party of some sort. Presumably they're enjoying themselves when the men of the town, the men of Gibeah, kind of surround their house and say, "Hey,
bring out." Oh, I was gonna read it.
Read it.
Bring out the man who came into your house, so that we may have intercourse with him.
Yeah. Does this remind you of anything else we've talked about, Jody?
I think it does. I think it reminds me of Sodom and Gomorrah when they came up to the house and said, "Hey, those two men in your house, let us have sex with them. Let us know them."
Yeah. And what else was Sodom and Gomorrah a study of? Hospitality. So again, what we're really doing here, what this story is really drawing on, is Sodom and Gomorrah, saying, hey, Gibeah, just as bad, if not worse, based on upcoming events, than Sodom was. So I think the story plays on three stories, mainly. I think it intentionally draws on three stories: Sodom and Gomorrah, the binding of Isaac, which we'll get to later, and then also when Saul sends out pieces of an oxen to declare war. So I think it's really hinting at those three stories and using those to create this narrative that we have here as a further exploration. But we'll talk about that later.
And they couldn't even give her a name. They're going to use her as a vehicle to explain all three of these stories, to help all three of these stories, and we're not even going to give her name is Beth.
In their defense, none of the men are named either.
Okay, well, you got me there.
I don't know if that makes you feel better or worse.
It does.
But
it does. I think if you're gonna dismember a woman, let her have a name.
Sure. Damn. Valid.
Okay. But yes, so they wanted to be inhospitable. But I thought only the foreigners were inhospitable.
Right. So again, this is a critique of Benjaminites.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they say, hey,
by someone of another tribe?
This is going to be pro-David, anti-Saul propaganda.
Oh.
And we'll get to that at the end when we've gone through this whole story.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're fine. But they ask to say, hey, can we sexually assault this man that came in so that we can, give shame to them? And it's, this power. It's like, can we assert our power and dominance over this guy?
Yeah.
And in this method of hospitality, the old man says, no, you can have my virgin daughter though, or like you can have this guy's concubine. Does that sound like a good alternative? And because that is also putting shame and power over the Levite who's there. They say, yeah, that's fine, that works too. Why not? More power to them. Because remember, with Sodom and Gomorrah, why that didn't work was because the women that they offered up were married or going to be married to men of the town. So that wouldn't, reflect the power dynamic in the men's favor. It would reflect a, no net gain there. Whereas here, sexually abusing the woman also puts shame and on the Levite.
Question, 1 second.
Yeah.
Verse 25 says, but the men would not listen to him. So then the man seized his concubine and put her out to them.
Yeah.
So it was saying that like they didn't agree, but he just threw her out there anyways. And then they still used her.
Okay, so verse 24, look, here's my virgin daughter and his concubine. Let me bring them out to you. Have your pleasure of them. Do what you'd like with them, but don't do that outrageous thing to this man.
Yeah.
But the men would not listen to him, saying, don't do that outrageous thing with a man. So they were,
So, but they didn't agree to have the women. They did it anyways, but it wasn't like they were like, oh yeah, we'll take the woman,
Sure.
They were just like, she was just outside and they just did it anyways.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry.
No, definitely. But this isn't like it's not like Sodom and Gomorrah here, where here there is an extra solution that they're willing to take. As the woman is outside, they say this works too. We will sexually assault this woman. Same thing. We win more with this, which is very problematic, especially since, as you mentioned, the man, the Levite, sees the woman, sees the concubine, and pushed her out to them. A definite act of cowardice and, just pure awfulness that he's just like, no, do it to this woman, not me, please, please.
Like, I'm going to track you all the way down back to Bethlehem, but when we get into a tough spot, I'm going to push you out to the wolves.
Yeah.
The propaganda is working.
Oh. But yeah, so the old man, he offers that alternative. He says, ravish them and do what is good in your eyes, and essentially giving them permission to rape the concubine. And interestingly, the man says it's a vile. The old man says it's a vile thing if he does it to the Levite, but if it's done to woman, it's good in their eyes. So to the old man who mediated between the men, he allowed no bad thing to happen to men. Yeah. And every man gets what he wants at the expense of the woman.
Yep.
Which, strong echoes of Sodom and Gomorrah, except here there are no angels to, solve the situation and protect the woman. So we move on to outside the house. And what's important here is there's a lot of, in this kind of subsection, is there's a lot of reference to doors and doorways happening. And this kind of liminal space that exists at the doorways. And the men never cross that threshold. It's only the woman who passes through that threshold, and she pays the prices for it. So the crime itself refused very few words. The storyteller isn't trying to be sensationalist or isn't trying to, show pornography of any type. And he doesn't even really care about the woman's fate. It's very quick, to the point, and then done and over with. So
2 sentences.
Yeah, and especially compared with like the lengthy discussion between the men that's happening, like obviously the narrator cares not for what's happening to this woman. That is not the main point. The men is the main point. The woman receives zero attention.
It doesn't say if she fought. It doesn't say if she screamed. It doesn't give any input to even her actions, her reactions, her feelings.
Mm-hmm.
It truly just focuses on the actions of the men.
Yeah.
And she's just an object in there.
Yeah. But notably at this point, after the crime is committed, she gets the first active verb attributed to her, where she falls down on the doorstep. Again, she's the only one that is on that deals with the door and the door frame and all that. So she lays there broken, kind of embodying her servant position while her master remains safe. Eventually daybreak comes. exposes the crime, um, and then we move on to kind of the last part of this final section, where the man says it's morning. Like obviously they've gone to sleep, done their thing. It's morning. The Levite says, "Okay, time for me to go," with no real intention to do anything about the woman. He just kind of wakes up and opens the door and says, "Oh, you're here," interrupting kind of his readiness to go home. But he addresses her and tells her to get going, and she does not reply. And what we have in the Septuagint, in the Greek version, is an explanation that she's dead. But we don't get that in the Hebrew. In the Hebrew, the interpretation allows for the possibility that she's alive. So it's unclear if we're reading the Hebrew version of this text, which I think for the most part is understood to be the older tradition. The Greek updated and added that, hey, she was dead. So it allows for the possibility that this woman was still alive. But the man pushes through, says, "Okay, get on this donkey," or rather puts her on the donkey, and then mission is completed. And we kind of end that scene and get to the conclusion. Any thoughts before we get to the conclusion?
I hate him. I
Yeah,
hate him so
valid.
much. I hate him so much. He is the worst. Like, there's no giving her aid. There's no asking her, "Are you okay?" There's just putting her on the donkey. Not even gently. It just says he puts her on the donkey.
Hmm.
Like, he did no tending to her wounds, no water.
Yeah.
Where are the basic things you would do for another human being?
Yeah. And the way that ancient interpreters dealt with this, as we see in the Greek version, is she was dead. So you wouldn't ask a dead person if she was okay. It's just assume that she's dead. We'll deal with her dead body later. But if, as the Hebrew allows, she's still alive, this is again another indictment on the Levite who's just treating this woman awfully.
Is it wrong to go with the Hebrew over the Greek? Because isn't the
No,
Greek just a translation of the Hebrew?
yeah, no, the Hebrew that we have is probably earlier.
Okay.
So I'm just saying there's
Yeah.
multiple ways that this has been passed through time.
No, I understand that there are multiple ways this has passed through time, but I'm going to go with the one that had the woman alive and the man not doing anything.
It's not that the Hebrew one had the woman alive, it's just that it allows for the possibility of the
Okay,
woman being alive.
fine.
Like the Hebrew allows for both. If you read the Hebrew, it's unclear if the woman is alive or dead. Either possibility is just as possible as the other.
Oh, well, I like that. I like
Yeah.
it open-ended.
Yeah.
The Septuagint, no.
Oh, but he gets back to his house with a maybe dead, maybe alive woman, and then we kind of get this rapid succession of verbs where he took, seized, cut, and sent out her body. At this point, she's dead because you can't be alive when your body's cut into 12 different pieces.
How did he cut her? Did he go
Yeah,
head first, or did we start with the extremities? Because if she'd been alive and he didn't start head first, again, there would have been screaming. So maybe I do
sure.
prefer having her dead.
Yeah, it's rough, but this is where I think that there's at least a slight allusion to Abraham's sacrifice of Isaac, which we need to do an episode on some point. It's I'm biased because I've taken classes on this, but Abraham sacrificing Isaac is hands down the best story in the Bible. So I don't know why we haven't done an episode on that yet, but I think it's alluding to that, especially with the taking and seizing. It definitely feels like there's an allusion to that story happening there, especially what's going on here as she's being murdered or sacrificed to some extent. So it's unclear if if she's alive or not, but this kind of allusion to Abraham and Isaac perhaps encourages that she was alive before he was killed, or before she was dismembered.
Yeah.
And this clearly isn't for like a burial ritual or anything like that. He's cutting her apart and is treated as the least of any biblical character. She's Trible says at one point she's property, object, tool, literary device without name, speech, power, friends, or mourners. She's no more than the oxen that Saul will later cut into pieces and send throughout Israel as a call to war. She used this literary device, and pretty much exclusively that, to call out to these different stories, kind of showing the atrocity of what is happening here. And again, the atrocity isn't necessarily that she's being cut to pieces. The atrocity is that the Benjaminites in Gibeah took this man's property and abused his property. That's the critique that we have here in the biblical narrative.
Did you hear me slam something down? I hope the mic caught me slamming things down, because that's infuriating.
Yeah.
I know it's what's happening, but it infuriates me. Yeah.
Yeah. It's rough. But again, in the Greek, we have it send out a messenger who sends a message to everyone in Israel asking if such a horrible deed as this has ever occurred. The Hebrew doesn't have this question, but kind of answers it before it was ever asked, saying that such a thing had never happened before. So we're saying this is a really bad thing, looking at the people of Gibeah as if they're, perhaps even a worse version of Sodom. And this eventually results in a civil war, resulting in Benjaminites against the rest of the tribes of Israel.
And so here are men who want to do bad things to another man. A man pushes a woman outside.
Mm-hmm.
The man then sees her after all of this has happened to her, puts her on a donkey, takes her home, cuts her up, and sends her out in pieces.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, Bible, maybe not pro-man.
Yeah. Also, maybe not pro-woman.
I never said it was pro-woman. I just don't think it's as pro-man as some people have wanted to believe.
Sure. Oh, yeah. And maybe it's not trying to address that question.
It's not trying to address it at all. And that's just what I'm taking from it, because I'm mad.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, if this happened to someone today, would there be an upset?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would hope so.
We'd hope so. But that's kind of the end of the story. And how I love that Trible ends each of her chapters with like different responses to the story, either from other parts in the biblical narrative or like external responses. So after the story and the end of Judges, we kind of get the civil war that I mentioned, where the war is against Benjamin, not on behalf of the woman, but on behalf of the destruction of the man's property. And after, all the tribes of Israel pretty much just destroy Benjamin, they say, well, we can't really just completely get rid of this tribe. It's still a tribe. It's still part of our group. Like, we still need them. So there's, 600 Benjaminite men left, but they need women. Oh, what are we going to do? We're going to attract Benjamin's allies and steal 600 of their women and give them to the Benjamite men so that, we can keep the tribe of Benjamin going, which, in essence means that the rape of one woman has now led to the rape of 600 women. Not a great story. The Bible is not all roses and rainbows.
No woman would write this.
Yeah. I don't know of any. I do know of one argument. that
I have a book.
I do know of one person who would argue that this could have been written by a woman, but I do not find that person credible.
Okay.
So, but what we have here from the editor of Judges, which is my favorite interpretation, or my favorite way of looking at this story, is that this story starts with, in those days there was no king in Israel, and the end of Judges ends with that phrase too. Let's find it.
Oh, yeah. So is this pro-king propaganda?
It's kind of, yeah, but we'll talk about that briefly. So we start this section with, in those days there was no king in Israel, and then we end at the very, very end of Judges. In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did as he pleased, or everyone did what was right in his own eyes. And this is kind of an allusion back to what the old man said when he sent the woman off to be raped. They say that they can do what is right in their own eyes. So this repetition of there being no king in Israel is, seems to be kind of a license for anarchy and violence, but that doesn't make sense based on, the editor seems to want the reader to look favorably on kingship. So it's ironic that Saul, the first Israelite king, is a Benjaminite who is very much, not that's not good. If the first king of Israel is a Benjaminite, after what happened here, something's wrong. So and this is moving outside of the literary criticism into more of the historical criticism.
We love it.
Yeah, which is my area. And what's happening here is later authors, probably during the time of David or after the Davidic time period, who were all everyone loved David. All the writers were like, oh yeah, David, he's my guy. So what's happening here is writing against Saul, saying that Saul guy was bad. And how is he bad? Because he was a Benjaminite, and the Benjaminites did all these horrible things. But David, who's from Bethlehem, the town of Judah, he's great. We love him. So, and remember in Bethlehem where the guy was super hospitable and super nice? Yeah, that's our guy David. So I think if we read this story primarily as a polemic against Saul and pro David, I think that's going to be the main reason perhaps that this story was written. And we see this, like, why would he cut up her body into all those pieces? Well, because that relates back to Saul, because Saul did that with all the oxen to declare war. So by associating Saul with these bad things that happened, we're saying this Saul was a bad guy, but our David, he's a good guy, by never once actually mentioning either of these men by name.
And this is all crazy because it was the Levite who cut her up.
Right. But again, it wasn't
getting any slack.
It wasn't the Levite that we're upset at. We're upset at the men of Gibeah who destroyed the Levite's property.
The Levite's the one who trussed her.
Yeah.
I'm just saying they're coming off squeaky clean, but he didn't need to throw her out of the house. Over to the men of Benjamin. Yeah, they were inhospitable. Sure. I see you. I understand where you're coming from. Why is he getting no smoke? How do the Levites leave this smelling daisy fresh?
Yeah.
Sorry. That is my, because I love a good historical diss track. And this is a lovely diss track between David and Saul and their camps. But the vehicles used were a Levite and a woman. Yeah.
And there's also like no evidence that this is a historical story. Like there's no reason to think that this story actually happened. Like that goes fairly without saying. Did similar things happen? Most certainly. Most certainly women were used and abused and treated just awfully. And that is the problem with stories like this, is because while this story probably didn't happen, it's not that outlandish to think that similar things did happen. And that's the problem that should be addressed.
Yeah.
But on a more positive side, if we look at the following book, the book that follows this, in the Christian tradition, it's the book of Ruth, which takes place in Bethlehem. And she's, related to David. So that's why it takes place in Bethlehem. And again, it's the study of hospitality and treats women in a very positive light. Like the story of Ruth is generally very, very positive towards women. So, that's a thumbs up. And on the other side, in the Hebrew Bible, how the Jewish Bible is ordered, we get 1 Samuel and the story of Hannah. And again, Hannah is seen in a very, very positive light and seen in a very good way, and is doing a 180 in its treatment of women. So after we get this horrible, horrible story, we get a reversal saying like, oh no, there's better ways to treat women. So, by stopping the story in chapter 19 of Judges, that kind of cuts it off a little too soon, and doesn't look at what the other editors of the Bible are trying to put together in this story. If we want to look at it through that perspective, chapter 19, still awful, 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 unexcusable behavior. But I think it's helpful to look at how the editors of the Bible placed after Judges in order to kind of bridge that gap.
I'm assuming that Ruth and Hannah, though, had some kind of influence or stature within their communities.
What do you mean?
Well, like, I just find, in a literary sense, women who are usually treated kinder usually have like a better upbringing, or at least an affluent place within their society.
So Ruth was an immigrant who had essentially no authority until she married up, essentially. Whereas Hannah was the mother of Samuel, and Samuel was the final judge, you could say. I don't know off the top of my head if she started off with any necessary authority or power, but being the mother of Samuel definitely would have raised her up a little bit.
Listen, I'm just going to say men can beat wives at home and open doors for other women out in the world. And that is sometimes what I feel like the Bible does.
Sure.
This is,
yeah.
And I know, it's not, don't hold it against a book. It is not a sentient being.
Right. The book is not a sentient being. The people who wrote the book are, and we should definitely address that. But
they're also products of their time and the influences that were around them.
Yeah. Right.
It doesn't make it right within our perspective now.
But what isn't okay is modern readers looking at this and affirming what was happening, saying, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Which is the problem.
Like, if you look at this today and you're like, obviously that's what's going to happen, I'm looking at you like, let's take a walk.
Yeah. And then the other problem is that nowhere else in the Bible is this really mentioned, except perhaps in like Hosea, where that kind of implies that there's this lingering memory that remains. But it's an overwhelmingly silent part of the rest of the Bible. And as Phyllis Trible says, silence covers impotence and complicity. So the silence that's happening here in the rest of the Bible by not saying anything about this treatment of women is, being complicit in this crime.
Yep.
To some extent. And I think that is what should be noted, that if we're talking, if there's Christians, Jews, whatever, that consider this to be a sacred text and are silent about the atrocities occurring to women such as this, then that is the problem.
Yep.
There's no reason to berate and attack people who've been dead for 2,500 years. But if the silence remains, that's where the problem is.
That doesn't mean the Levite is going to be safe from my scornful journal writing later.
Sure.
How dare that man hurt Beth?
Yeah. Poor Beth.
And yeah, so she will be affectionately known as Beth to me for the rest of my life, because she deserves a name. But it is a cool thing that this story, although she's so terribly treated, does kind of connect multiple other stories together.
No, she's used and abused physically and as a literary device. So, not the best way you want to be treated.
Nope. But we've reclaimed a little joy for her.
Yeah.
Go back.
Yeah, a little, I guess. Not as much as others, perhaps. No, it's a rough story. This is definitely a rough story, and going through Phyllis Trible's book definitely will take a toll. Like, it's a hard read. Not like reading it is hard, but emotionally, it's definitely a hard read.
No, it's definitely, because I'm sitting there and I'm like, this poor girl just went, she's just like, I just want to be home with my dad.
Yeah.
And her dad tries his hardest to keep her there. And
Mhm.
then all this happens and she didn't even get a name.
Beth.
That's
She has a name now.
she has a name. That's Beth. All right. Well, this has been an episode. Anything else we need to talk about before we wrap up?
No, thank you all for listening. If you want to listen to more of our episodes, listen to us on Spotify or Apple or Amazon, or watch us on YouTube or anywhere else you get podcasts. Wherever you're listening to us now, we have other episodes.
Yeah.
And then we're also on social media. We're having so much fun on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter. I'm not having a ton of fun on Twitter, but we're there. Well,
TikTok is rough. Instagram is rough. Let's just be honest. We're in the trenches, man.
I'm having fun on TikTok
You're
and Instagram.
Yeah, you like to talk to people who comment. I'm just like, why are they so?
Yeah, it's a good time. We're also on Bluesky.
Go there.
Yeah, and YouTube. We post all of our stuff on YouTube too. YouTube likes our art videos. I love posting my art videos. Listen, follow us on Instagram and follow and comment. Give us your thoughts.
If you're watching on YouTube, at the end of this, it'll suggest 2 videos for you that it thinks you will love. Highly recommend whichever 2 they are.
Does it do that automatically, or do we set that up?
I added that.
Wow, look at us. We're learning how to like do technology. Be proud of us, guys. Tell us that you're proud of us. If you listen to this, tell us you're proud of us, or that you hate us. Either way, tell us something.
At this point, I'm not sure anyone listened, so prove me wrong.
Oh. Cool. Anyways, thanks for listening, and have a great night, morning, afternoon.